how to find the altcoins with the most potential. So that's what we're going to discuss today. If we check the current price of MicroStrategy, and you know the playbook of Sailor, right? The stock surged from like $24 to above $350. So that's the thing we want to understand. And we're going to discuss about two things. So MicroStrategy playbook, what have Sailor done, and all the DAT, digital asset treasury. And then all the companies having some kind of like public treasury management, because we want to focus on those altcoins. These are the ones that will overperform. And so, you know, it's MicroStrategy pumped. Why? Because they have been buying Bitcoin, right? By leveraging and by buying debt. And you can see that the performance of MicroStrategy is better than Bitcoin. So if historically speaking, it was better to buy MicroStrategy stock rather than Bitcoin. And we clearly see it, right? Why? Because people first don't have access, most people don't have access to Bitcoin. So they are able to buy Bitcoin or get Bitcoin exposure through MicroStrategy stock that is listed on the Nasdaq. And second thing is like people bet on Michael Saylor on the fact that he will always be able to buy back more Bitcoin. That's just a thing to keep in mind. So what is Michael Saylor doing? He's borrowing money to buy more Bitcoin, and he keeps doing that, right? So that's something very important. So he started in like 2020, and you can see all the dots where he purchased Bitcoin. So now he holds like a shit ton of Bitcoins. But that's the playbook. What it means by that is like for people, for investors, it's one of the playbook that worked. And so guys who will copy that and do it on another asset, it will most likely work just because it worked for Bitcoin, and people are like, okay, Michael Saylor did it, this guy will do it, you know? That's what Tommy Lee is doing with Ethereum. So of course, guys, don't forget to go follow Trenches, join the Alpha group, you know, a bunch of Alpha in the group. Very cool if you want to chat about your portfolio, about what you see in the crypto market and everything. So we discussed about Michael Saylor playbook. That is pretty unique, right? Because he's using really finance and his company shares to borrow more money again and again and buy more Bitcoin. And that's why Bitcoin has some buy pressure now, because of the ETF and because of Saylor and because of all the guys being like, okay, Saylor will buy more, so I have to front run Saylor, you know, kind of. And now we have other stuff. We have other companies like Solana and like Ina that are doing basically same as Saylor treasury, which is basically some guys going at Wall Street, asking some people to put money into a fund, and then leveraging through like a stock, let's say, to make it super simple, to use that stock to be like kind of like an ETF, and that will use the money that they raise through that stock to buy back as much NA as possible and build like a NA treasury like Michael Saylor did with Bitcoin. And so what it means by that is like it means these are kind of like assets that will just have billions of dollars in flow. And that's why Solana is pumping, you know? And that's the thing. I think like a few weeks ago, like mid-August, we had the belief that a lot of companies will do that on Solana. You know, a lot of DAT, digital asset treasury, go on Solana. And so Solana will just pump because there is a lot of flows. And that's why we are holding Solana. We are not selling, and I don't plan to sell anytime soon, right? I just want to see Solana overperform and then see. And that's why for NA it's interesting too, right? Because they are raising money to then buy. And the smaller the altcoin, the bigger the impact, right? And also now we have the impact of people knowing that it works. That's why you have to be in trenches, because we are always front running the market and be like, okay, I know that it will work also for these guys. And so you can buy faster because you understand the playbook. So that's second playbook. So of course, everything I'm saying, not a financial advice, do your research. I'm not saying that I'm buying Solana here. We loaded our bags during the summer and everything, right? Third playbook is about the companies who have like cash on their balance sheet or who are generating money that are like, okay, how can I leverage that to build kind of like a treasury management public one? You know, they can have a private one, you know, with like the market makers or like the treasury managers the project have that are basically buying, selling the token for them. And then they can have like a public one. For example, for Pump Fund, they want to showcase to people that they are generating revenue. And so they are constantly doing some buybacks on the market and disclosing the revenue and like giving more data for investors to be like, is Pump Fund undervalued or overvalued? Is it a good asset or not? So it's kind of like public treasury management. Chainlink is doing something a bit different, right? They are leveraging the fact that they have cash on the balance sheet, and I think they will disclose a bit more what they have to be like, okay, we are backed also by, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum and all this kind of stuff. And this is where like the valuation of a company in crypto becomes more complex. Before it was just like FOMO and FUD, then it has some fundamental value and it's evolving. And now the value of a company can be really changed based on what they have on the balance sheet or the revenue they're generating or the growth they have, because you can figure out ways to engineer it. And what I mean by that is like done a proper way. It's like building a new narrative and all this kind of stuff. So you know, I'm advising a bunch of projects. So that's the thing we are working on. Is like like how can they have the most appealing like narrative for investors, right? And in disclosing a bit more that what have been done in the past, because they want more, they want people to trust more, they want people to have more transparency also, which is a cool thing, right? I just think that crypto industry is evolving, and so that's the third playbook that we have. Then we have like other playbook on smaller altcoins of like people generating revenue, buying back tokens, doing some buyback and burn, putting some money in a treasury to be like, when there is a dip, the company leverage that to absorb the dip, you know, to always defend the investors. Because, you know, I think that when you are like a founder, your goal is to maximize shareholder value, right? It's like you have people owning the token. And so what is a shareholder in crypto is like just a guy owning the token. So when you own Pump, you want to have the Pump team being like, how can I generate as much value as possible for my investors and for the people owning the token? And so having the token going up, you know, kind of. And for the people who believe in it, who keep buying the token, have them being rewarded, you know. That's the thing. So we go back on the keyword that you will hear over and over again. What is DAT? Digital Asset Treasury. It's kind of like an ETF, but a different way. So they raise capital via equity or debt. Then they use that capital to buy an altcoin through a very specific, unique financial engineering play. And then they have this asset on the balance sheet, and they are able to buy or sell the asset then, and have the people buying also the asset, getting exposure indirectly to this balance sheet. And that's something very interesting. So it sounds kind of like an ETF, but differently on how is it being managed and everything. So that's the thing. And then you have something very interesting. So I try to simplify as much as possible, right? And you have the stock price here in orange. Then you have the NAV of like, what is the company holding? Basically, it's going up because like they are always buying more assets. And so you have sometimes the company being overvalued and sometimes undervalued. And so you have a bunch of investors then being like, okay, I have a feeling that it should be valued like that. And so I'm buying because there is an inefficiency. I'm selling because I think it's overvalued. And because you have that, it generates also more activity, which is something very interesting for the tokens, because then they are ranked better like on centralized exchange and everything. I can go more in depth about that chart in the video, but I try to keep it simple. And that's the thing we are doing in Trenches, is like we try to go a bit deeper in all these kind of charts. So of course, that's why I'm a Maxi Solana, Multicoin, Jump, bunch of guys are building treasury companies to basically buy back more Solana. A bunch of more companies are coming up. We have like some rumors from here and there. So that's very bullish, right? I will put the link of those two websites in the description. Trust me, go have a look. Try to understand who are those companies buying Bitcoin over and over again. Who are those companies holding that, you know? I think Bitcoin is really becoming the assets, like the collateral for all the assets, you know, the asset of all assets. And so that's why all those companies are like rushing to accumulate more Bitcoin. Ethereum is having like an interesting playbook these days with a bunch of companies either like buying because they believe in Ethereum or like more because they want to have like a play on the stock or whatsoever. But that's something very interesting. And that's also a thing, you know, let's say you are a Web2 company being listed somewhere, adding a bit of crypto and playing a play is also a way to make your stock more appealing for investors, you know, like you showcase that you can do crypto, that you can, you know, follow up the narrative and everything, which is something very interesting and very bullish for our bags, because now we don't only have the ETF buying up our bags. We don't only have Wall Street. We have now guys who are like leveraging that, or like big companies that want to acquire some crypto just to play that narrative, which is super bullish for our bag. And that's why you want to be focused and you want to put your money on those kind of altcoins. Otherwise, you will underperform the market. And I recommend you to have a look. You know, it's really serious business here, you know, like, you know, they are being featured on the NASDAQ. I think it's very cool to see. So if I were to recap, I explained three financial engineering way for crypto tokens to overperform. And these are like very important ones. So before buying any asset, make sure they fall into those three main ones. Otherwise, I have a feeling that we will underperform. So of course, meme coins are different, right? I'm more talking about utility coins here, and like a bit bigger, you know, icons. For small icons, it's a bit different play. But you have my how I see the market these days. Hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, share to your friends. I really appreciate it, and see you soon for another video.